As is tradition during this part of spring, we all anticipate the upcoming spectacle that is WrestleMania. With 41 this year having some big matchups and surely another twist or turn to go with it, the big event in Las Vegas is bound to, or already has, depending on when this is uploaded, add some more incredible and unforgettable moments that WWE will be adding to future countdowns and compilations for years to come. But if you've seen some videos on this channel before, you'll likely guess that I'm instead going back to when the World Wrestling Federation had a stacked lineup of programming on MTV to build up WrestleMania 18 on March 17, 2002. Starting with an episode of Tough Enough Season 2 and culminating in the live pre-show edition of Sunday Night Heat that segued into the Showcase of The Immortals live from the SkyDome. But between the two, an hour-long special aired to give fans a look back at what the biggest moments and matches were in the, at that point, 17 previous editions of the show. This video will go through the highlights of seeing what the WWF did to celebrate the rich history of WrestleMania, both in the ring as well as the pomp and circumstance outside of it. While this will surely be a pain in the last man to deal with for copyright claims, let's take a chance and watch WWF Flashback, WrestleMania's Greatest Hits from 2002. We open on a montage of clips from each respective year of WrestleMania up to this point, before going to Michael Cole and Jerry the King Lawler in the production truck, as Cole hypes up some of the moments to come.
Oh, you remember that bra and panties match between Trish and Terry?
That wasn't WrestleMania. I'm talking about the Dragon and Macho Man.
Wait a minute. Jenny McCarthy and Pamela Anderson. That was WrestleMania.
Yeah, it was. But how about Shawn and Brett? How about Hulk and Andre?
Yeah, those were great too.
While King starts us off with a look at various singers and bands who have kicked off the grappling festivities with their performances of America the Beautiful.
WrestleMania 3, just incredible. 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome. Hulkamania was running wild. The eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. We in the back, all the talent and the wrestlers, we were in awe. And the place went crazy. I mean, you couldn't even hear, it was so loud.
As you'd expect, the first match shown is Hogan versus Andre at the Silverdome, going through the build-up and then highlights of the massive main event with the Hulkster body slamming the Giant and stamping his name into the history books. Back from commercials, we jump to the Ultimate Challenge between Hogan and the Warrior at WrestleMania 6, before counting down the biggest attendance records in Mania history. Give them about 14 years, and they may add one more number to the list. If it's legitimate, of course. Triple H then gives his thoughts about the 60-minute Iron Man match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart from WrestleMania 12.
WrestleMania 12 was a huge event for me. It was my first WrestleMania, and it was a huge card, and the top of that card was Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, the WWF Championship. Shawn and Bret went out there and did, like I said, what few people could do. And for 60 minutes, they poured it all out there. They put their heart and souls on the line. You know, you had two of the greatest superstars, two of the greatest at that time, two of the greatest of all time, you know, doing what very few people could do. A lot of guys don't really realize what an Iron Man is, and those guys not only made people watch, but they took people on an emotional roller coaster, and I don't think anybody that watched that match would ever forget it.
The Hitman and the Heartbreak Kid make history in Anaheim, California, as after both men go bell to bell for an hour, it takes some overtime and a sweet chin music for Shawn to win the Winged Eagle belt. Imagine how the rematch would be if they ran this one back in next year's show, right? We return to see a backstage interview with Jennifer Flowers and The Rock from WrestleMania 14, in which the early signs of the soon-to-be most electrifying man in sports entertainment are on display.
I'm here with the Intercontinental Champion.
Actually, Jenny, it's the People's Intercontinental Champ.
Excuse me. The People's Intercontinental Champion, The Rock. Now, Rock, the people want to know if you were the leader of this country, how would you run things?
Well, first and foremost, as long as all the Rock's fans across the country realized that The Rock is the judge and the jury, everything should be fine. And actually, Jenny, after The Rock contemplated that for a second, if The Rock were the jury, The Rock feels like this. 9 times out of 10, he'd be a hung jury if you smell what I'm cooking.
How would you run the White House?
Rock feels like this. As long as all the interns in the White House beneath The Rock knew their damn role and they didn't get out of hand, step out of line, and they didn't do anything orally wrong, excuse me, Jenny, morally wrong, then The Rock wouldn't have to do what he does best, and that's lay the smack down in a major way.
This segues to the top 5 best celebrity moments at Mania. Starting at the first event where Liberace dances with some showgirls in the ring. Next is Morton Downey Jr. defying Roddy Piper's request and leaving Piper's pit with his cigar getting put out hot rod style. The third entry is Bob Uecker interviewing and briefly getting choked out by the 8th wonder of the world backstage. Number 2 being Lawrence Taylor main eventing WrestleMania 11 against Bam Bam Bigelow, including footage of them brawling at the public workout in Times Square. Here's hoping the WWE Vault channel can upload this one in full down the road. Number 1 goes to Pete Rose insulting the Boston Red Sox before getting his karma via a tombstone piledriver from Kane. Edge then talks about how synonymous The Undertaker and his undefeated streak is with WrestleMania. Kind of funny how the future victim of said streak mentions it here with such praise.
WrestleMania is a dream come true. It's the Super Bowl of what we do. It's always been a dream of mine to go to a WrestleMania and compete. You know, I grew up watching them. When you hear WrestleMania and watch WrestleManias, there's certain names that are synonymous with it, and one of them, you know, is The Undertaker. And there's a reason that he's synonymous with WrestleMania. It's because he's one of the men that have set the standard in this industry for years upon years upon years. He's a guy that you must respect, and he shows it at WrestleMania.
We see the early years of the Deadman building his wins on the grandest stage of them all to the tune of his Ministry theme, before briefly seeing the American Badass adding Triple H to that list last year in Houston. Going to Big Evil himself describing how the legend of the streak will live on at WrestleMania.
WrestleMania has been dubbed the granddaddy of them all. And I guess probably a truer name was never given to an event. Because when it comes to sports entertainment, WrestleMania, and that's what it's all about. And to be invited or to be on the card at WrestleMania, it doesn't get any higher. To main event WrestleMania, it don't get any better than that. It makes all the bumps, it makes all the broken bones, it makes all the bruises. It makes it all worth it. Because you know you're going to be highlighted the granddaddy, the biggest, baddest event of the year. 9-0 for me. Never been defeated. Never will be defeated. WrestleMania, it's a time to kick ass or have your ass kicked. And I don't like having mine kicked, so I'm gonna put it out there one more time and let the legend continue to grow.
Our next batch of highlights go to the aftermath of Randy Savage versus The Warrior at WrestleMania 7. As the Macho King may have lost his in-ring career, but he would end up back together with Miss Elizabeth in one of the most emotional moments in WrestleMania history. Saliva's Click Click Boom plays over Jeff Hardy's swanton off the ladder from Mania 2000 before circling back to undisputed champion Chris Jericho discussing Savage versus Steamboat.
Well, my favorite WrestleMania match would be from WrestleMania 3, Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage for the Intercontinental Championship. I was always more enthralled by the guys that were closer to 6 feet and 230 pounds, like Randy Savage, like Ricky Steamboat, because they moved quicker. Their matches were always more exciting, faster paced, a lot more ups and downs, more of a roller coaster ride. I watched it on closed circuit, ladies and gentlemen. You don't see closed circuit anymore at the Winnipeg Arena on a big screen in the arena. There was 22 two counts, and my friend and I used to set down our couch cushions in the basement and reenact the entire Steamboat Savage WrestleMania 3 match. To this day, it's still one of the reasons why I got into the business was because of that match, and it left such an impact on me. When I got the chance to meet Randy Savage for the first time, that's the first thing I said, thank you, sir, for that tremendous match. It's one of the reasons why I'm standing here today.
One of the greatest technical matches at Mania occurs due to Savage attacking the Dragon's throat, even using the ring bell to cause significant damage, as the two are set to face off with Ms. Elizabeth and George Steele in their respective corners. After some incredible back and forth sequences, and despite Randy using every move in his arsenal, the same ring bell that intensified this feud would ultimately cost him the match and the Intercontinental Championship in Pontiac, Michigan. Before going to break, we briefly see the outside of Caesar's Palace at WrestleMania 9, where Jim Ross made his WWF debut on commentary alongside Savage and Bobby Heenan. Jumping ahead to the Gimmick Battle Royal from last year's spectacle, the Iron Sheik would ultimately prevail, as we then go to the best finishes from Mania history. First one up is Hogan vs. Sid from WrestleMania 8. Look, I get the Warrior returning may have justified putting it here, but it's ironic that the WWF considered this a fantastic finish when the timing of Papa Shango's interference, not to mention ending the bout via DQ, makes it quite the bold choice to start off with. Thankfully, the next entrant is far more justified, with the ladder match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels leading to the bad guy becoming the undisputed IC champion. The tournament finals from WrestleMania 4 is up next, where Elizabeth runs to the back to bring Hulk Hogan out to stop Andre and help Randy Savage defeat the $1 Million Man to become WWF champion. Number 2 is the triangle ladder match between Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and Dudleys. A preview of the chaos to come in future TLC matches between these guys. This one is absolutely worth the watch if you haven't already seen it. And so, the number 1 finish on the countdown is WrestleMania 9. You gotta be fucking kidding me. WrestleMania 9, where Yokozuna defeated Bret Hart to win the WWF title for all of a few minutes before Hogan comes out to quickly take it away from him and close out the show. They really were glazing Hogan so soon after his return to the Federation, weren't they? Thank God for Kurt Angle to get us away from that mess to him watching Mike Tyson's involvement in the Mania main event just 5 years later.
Well, WrestleMania to me is like the Olympics of sports entertainment. And the one that I remember most was WrestleMania 14 with Mike Tyson and Shawn Michaels. And I remember watching it and, you know, I really didn't understand professional wrestling at the time, you know, sports entertainment. But watching all the hype that was brought into that WrestleMania, I knew that sports entertainment and WrestleMania in general was so big, I mean, bigger than anything I've ever seen, that I wanted to be a part of it.
The baddest man on the planet helped bring the WWF a whole lot of publicity for his role as guest enforcer in the Shawn Michaels vs. Stone Cold title match, but would walk into Boston as the newest member of D-Generation X. Despite the tension between him and Tyson, Steve was able to stay focused on HBK while Michaels would try to cut off the Texas Rattlesnake at every chance from winning the title. With the referee knocked down, Mike would run in to make the 3 count and help Stone Cold win the WWF Championship. As Shawn would leave WrestleMania and his in-ring career for 4 years, with a shiner to the fans' delight. In the final minutes of this special, we go back to Cole and Lawler as they reflect on how far the event has come since the mid-80s.
Anyway, how far WrestleMania has come since it debuted in 1985 on closed circuit?
Well, WrestleMania has brought us a lot of great moments, and it's going to continue at WrestleMania 18 this Sunday live from the Toronto SkyDome.
Thanks for joining the King and I on WWF Flashback, WrestleMania's greatest hits, and we will see you Sunday in Toronto for WrestleMania.
Before going to one final montage of clips as Drowning Pool's Tear Away wraps things up. For the most part, I thought the WrestleMania Flashback special did well in covering as much of the nearly 20 years worth of matches and appearances within an hour, showcasing how important this yearly tradition has been even through the WWF's ups and downs. That being said, I thought there were certain superstars that should have gotten featured a bit more, especially Bret Hart, but it's understandable why that wasn't the case. I'll also add that the finishes countdown could have been changed. I'd swap out Hogan vs. Sid with Hulk defeating Sergeant Slaughter at Mania 7 for the sake of getting the Hulkster match on the list, and certainly replace Hogan stealing the spotlight at Caesar's Palace with Bret vs. Austin at Mania 13, since that finish is far more fantastic, but also significant to the WWF for what was to come in the next few years. Funnily enough, I actually wrote this part of the script a few weeks before Bret vs. Austin was announced as the first ever match to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this year, so that choice is even more solidified with the benefit of hindsight. But beyond those particular gripes, everything else mentioned or featured is about what you'd expect for a WrestleMania retrospective, with the usual suspects and a few matches that got left out being in the montage at the very end of the special. In terms of promoting WrestleMania, this was a quick but effective way of looking back on its history while also building anticipation for what was to come hours later on pay-per-view. And while I personally thought seeing Naoya Ogawa going through fan access and heading into the SkyDome for the show itself was a cooler piece of content related to WrestleMania 18, I also believe this special is a nice supplemental piece if you want to watch it in full along with the Sunday Night Heat pre-show. While we wait to see what WrestleMania 41 offers to add onto the 4 decades of its significant track record, it's nice to look back on how the WWE, or F, previously highlighted its signature event and featured the stars of the era who would go on to have their own moments and matches that would be thrown into the mix of continuous replays, along with the aforementioned highlights of the past, to help build the massive but crucial history behind wrestling's biggest event every single year.